Hi, I'm Mike Coyle from Insidexploration. I'm here with Frank Dumas of Zeu Crypto and Enrico Di Cesare from SX St. George Eco Mining. Thanks for joining us today, guys. I appreciate it. So I guess to start off with, let's talk a little bit about the lithium extraction technology and where you're at with that.
Well, we're progressing better than we thought, and we're pretty excited by the progress we've done. The leach is exceptional, and the fact that the market is responding from blue chip equipment vendor side, wanting to be a partner, that's pretty exciting for us.
So in one of your latest updates, you've kind of touched base on that you've had a few industry leaders come to you looking for some work to be done with you guys. So can you elaborate on what type of industry leaders, or is that kind of out of the realm?
I would say that's still, let's call it secretive, because there's NDAs and things, and
Okay.
in many ways we insisted on that.
We can precise on one point. We do have some NDAs with other lithium property owner,
Okay.
project owner. But when we refer to the NDA, it was with blue chip equipment vendors. So what we've done in the last 6 months is approach equipment vendors that have their own lab, because we needed that equipment to test what we were doing so that they actually could figure it out for themselves. And some of them said, well, we have a few patents also. Let's see if we can augment each other.
And so the ICM contract, everything is going smoothly. There's no hiccups or holdups right now.
There's actually, like, it's funny because I'm getting so many of these texts of people saying, oh, you have delays. And because we've said, oh, we're expecting some results in January, for example. Well, the results came in and either made us decide to do more tests or to tweak what we were doing, or they came in negative. And we got a few negative. Like we just announced a press release, the floating with water, with deionized water, didn't work. Then we realized, okay, it's not worth it. Let's revert back to what we were expecting to work, and that's what we're testing now. The funniest part is we're at a place where we're not sure we want that step into the process. We might be able to skip it because in between we started to look for solutions in case this fails again the second time. So, but we're looking at stuff like, are we producing something at 96% or at 97 or 99.7%? So, but it's important. It's important because if we want to go after low grade deposit, we need to be as close as possible to 90% with the least possible amount of money or resource invested into the process.
Great. So your involvement in the lithium extraction is very important. Obviously, you have a few patents of your own regarding some nickel extraction technologies. Can you elaborate on the significance of how this applies to hard rock? I know it's been kind of a topic of conversation. So,
Well, when we started this, I mean, the whole objective was working on the Bonnie Claire in Nevada. Anytime you make what looks like a breakthrough, you have to test it on other things, and the results have been exceptional and equal. So we're very encouraged that we're onto something.
so you're looking forward to getting some samples from Hippo in the next few weeks, months. Are you already kind of figured out where you're going with Hippo as it stands now, or is this going to be a whole brand new process?
It is an interesting deposit. Obviously, it's Africa, so there's a lot of unknown in terms of exportation permit, in terms of even knowing exactly who owns the royalty on that project. So things in Africa are a little bit different. You realize that you already have an high-grade deposit, and then you have to work on stuff that you would have like figured out here in the first 3 months that you got involved with the project. So things like there's cultural elements also that comes to it. But for us, when we actually got approached by them as an Australian company, it was okay, well, we'll take it. Because we need that level of volume to prove to be able to send to third-party labs and third-party engineering firms that can actually give us not the green light, but just like
Confirmation.
yeah, I would say I was looking for another word. Confirmation would be good.
Yeah.
That this thing works. Independently reviewed And okay, it works, and it works with material that we don't necessarily have here. It's not a niche type of thing. We've talked this week about we're using material from L'Oreal, so it's a bit niche, but L'Oreal has spodumene. So that spodumene part of the material is what Canada Lithium is. It's what Critical Element has. It's what Nemaska has. Give or take on the grade, but like the rocks around it, or at least the crystal formation or the crystal form is very similar. Then you have the purple stuff, which is the lepidolite. That's a bit different because it's mica, but we can actually separate that in the first step and then run both side by side. Now, what we've done is try to test it as a whole. The first batch has been put in as if it's one type of rock. If it comes out and it's over 95%, nobody can touch us.
Nice. So speaking about separating some of the different minerals, you and I have discussed value and byproducts, and you kind of touched base on that in your last news release with regards to the fertilizer. Can you elaborate on that and the value in that in the market?
Yeah, so the only thing that we were looking at was, can you sell the chemicals consumed for the price you just spent on them? And if you can recover that, then you become the lowest cost producer because you're selling it as a byproduct. A lot of processes, it doesn't matter what industry it is. You know, if you're using up your chemicals on other elements, it's a cost to your process. If you use other chemicals to neutralize it, it's a cost to your process. If you can sell them for at least the cost of chemicals or more, you're ahead of the game. And that's kind of what's happened in this process.
So you foresee this being
Greener and cleaner.
Greener and cleaner. I like that term.
And lower cost.
That's beautiful. So you had mentioned a little while back when we were talking about value and byproducts that you can actually utilize iron to create energy. Am I correct in that?
And again, that depends on what. But in the case of lithium, most often lithium type resources are full of silica. Very low iron, so that's not the issue. Some other non-ferrous industries have an iron problem. That's a different solution, right? For example, most nickel laterites are 70% iron oxides. Overly simplistic. A lot of what they call copper resources, IOCG, full of iron too. In those cases, smaller deposits that were not economical in the past can be rendered economical today because your problem is turned into an energy solution. So it's always relative to what the actual resources problems are or what the chemistries are.
So each situation is different. It's pretty safe to say.
You want to look at the regional problematic also. It's something a lot of people don't do. You're going to go into a deposit where you have another type of producer, another mineral producer, or a chemical company close by who might need what you're doing. And now you get into some type of a barter situation where the material you need, being natural gas, biosynth, or acid, might be produced by somebody who needs some of your tailings or some of your byproduct. So this is a way to look at the global, everything that comes in, the global costs versus global output of the deposit. And that's what we've done with most of the project we're involved right now, looking at who's around, who's less than 500 kilometers, still makes sense transportation-wise, and that we can figure out a way to do bartering.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what differentiates your extraction technologies from some industry leaders today?
I would say in this case it was driven by need, but the reality is that we went outside the box. And we're not going to say that we're smarter than everybody else. We were actually trying to reduce one of the elements, and lithium went into solution. We didn't even believe it, we did it again. It's like, oh, well, this might be a game changer. And today, when you look back on it internally from our side, we say, oh my God, I can't believe no one thought of this earlier. So that's kind of the way it's happened. And it's not because of pure brilliance. It's partially because we just said, let's take a step back and relook at this with a different approach, and we came up with a different solution.
So part of your process has been utilizing your Julie nickel project to kind of do some metallurgy. Can you kind of expand on where you are with the Julie nickel project at all?
A little bit. So, Julie has been a funny thing because that's the project with the Zeu Crypto that founded St. George almost 2 decades ago. Took forever because we're talking back when one of the most popular projects in Canada was Voisey Bay. And I'm not comparing to Voisey Bay at all. Like I know everybody has a little bit of nickel, try to or use Voisey Bay as a reference. I think that's been done. We would like to come up with something that's interesting, that we can sell as a concentrate, or that we could figure out a way to monetize. And Julie and Zeu Crypto are still interesting because they both have a byproduct that make whatever we could produce as main metals come at a zero cost, as long as we find enough of it. And so far, obviously, both of these projects they have high grade showings, and it's really what it is. It's a collection of a lot, or constellation of showings, but we don't have the connectivity between these showings, at least not under National Instrument 4201, to be able to say it connects.
And having said that, you do plan on doing a full-scale drilling program this year?
Well, we've came in and in October, and I know some surface drill actually picture a leak at one point from the people we're working with, but we actually we're looking at doing a bulk sampling initially to figure out if we're going after the right minerals and to just supplement to what we already know. There was thousands of kilometers of geophysical lines that have been done on these projects. A lot of surface work. We have a general idea of where the materials at surface, to the point where we could probably, in a crazy world, have a resource estimate just from surface samples that we're taking. But it's not the way it works. So, yeah, we need to go back in, but we want to go back in, and that's the tricky part with these projects. If it was an iron ore projects, I would tell you, okay, we're going to go and we're going to do 5 deep holes and that's it. We're going to have that multi-million, hundreds of million tons of iron ore resource. Mm-hmm. Nickel, sometimes, especially with a kicker of palladium and platinum, can be a little bit more tricky. Especially that to this day, we are convinced that we didn't hit the source yet. We're still in the intrusive, we're still in the chimney, we're still in the smoke. We didn't find the fire.
And I see Enrico smiling over there, and I know you want to chime in on this.
No,
so.
there's one other variable in all this. That region is recrystallized, which is an anomaly. Like most of these deposits are not recrystallized the same way. And I mean, very ordinary deposits. I mean, I'm not making this up. Everybody's discovering this now. You know, iron, titanium, they're all recrystallized. And these resources that Frank was just telling you about have all been recrystallized too, which makes the recovery of the important elements.
It's a regional free procurement.
Yeah, it's like putting it in an oven at a certain temperature for many years and having it recrystallize, which would have cost a fortune if you were to do it in your own backyard and in your own furnace. But this was done naturally. So today, a lot of these resources, if you just took the chemistry, you would say, it's the same as this one. Well, they're not exactly, because they've been recrystallized. And they're easier to recover. And that's what makes it really intriguing from my side of it. Because I would not have known this, till I started actually doing metallurgical work on them. So I'm really encouraged by what I'm seeing there as more economical. The other side of that is that everybody always wants huge resources. Oh yeah, you got nickel. How many millions of tons do you have? Without looking at, okay, every ton you take out, what does it really cost you? And what can you turn it into? And what are your byproducts? Okay, so that's the subtlety of all of this. If I can recover 75% of the total weight of a nickel laterite or a nickel type sulfide resource, because I'm recovering the iron, I'm recovering the copper, and I'm recovering the nickel, I'm well ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
Because if I say 1.5%, you say, oh, geez, 1.5% that you're after. If I tell you 75% of it is recoverable and 1.5% is nickel, that's a different game.
Yeah.
But I'm doing the same effort money-wise. And that's the subtlety of recrystallized versus not recrystallized, and the effort of recovering all of the byproducts versus just the nickel.
Interesting. So you own, well, St. George owns all the mineralization rights in Iceland. How significant is that?
It's tough to say. It's still an unknown. Like we know there's probably the Tor deposit that's been exploited with high-grade gold, but there's no modern resource system at all. So it could be anything.
So are there
Maybe
plans?
the German that exploited in the 30s left with every ounces of gold but a few. So we expect to find a lot more. And the best scenario, it's a multi-million ounces deposit.
Yeah.
Like downtown, actually just in the suburb of Reykjavik, of the capital. So straight between two highways. But we don't know yet. The thing is, Iceland has been very, very severe since the 90s on environmental issues. Whatever you have to do here to get a license, to get claims, to get the right to just explore, is totally inverted in Iceland, where they're going to put all the weight of an environmental study that you would do pre-production in North America before you can start to actually do exploration over there.
So you have to run a full-scale
Yeah.
feasibility study before
Well,
you can even
not a
start.
full scale like here, but pretty advanced, which has been pretty much pushing everybody out of the country. And but after it's done, if you go into exploration, you find something, there's a little less to do after to be able to actually bring this into production.
And is there any plans moving forward to start any exploration? Have you
We
applied for
have
permits?
we have permits that have been filed, and we have 4 licenses. And when we're talking about license, we're talking about hundreds of square kilometers that have been pushed forward for this summer.
Interesting. Looking forward to that. So just to go back to the lithium extraction technology or extraction technologies in general, where do you compare with industry leaders? I think kind of touch base on this, but I'm looking for a little more specifics, if you will.
You know, there's a lot of good people out there doing a lot of good things. What I think this does is it'll make people think, especially on hard rock. You know, we're not competing with the brines in this world. You know, what's going on in Argentina
Let's
and Chile.
make this very clear. We've not touched brine at all. So, and that includes in Nevada. But there's other metallurgical brine people like that are working on metallurgical extraction technology. They're doing a very nice job. There's a few. I'm not going to name them, but well, at least they're saying it's working. We've seen good results. We don't know to what scale. We don't know all the econometrics also. And to be fair, they don't know our econometrics either. We're not there yet. But they're attacking certain projects that they're so far advanced, we're not even going to try.
Yeah.
So we've choose things that either were connected to us by some other technology we had moved forward, or that we had a direct interest into. And so we're not touching brines at all. So we really went into, how can I say that, crystal that are equivalent to hard rocks, rhyolites, spodumene, lepidolite into what
That's
has been
also-
called clay, but it's mostly sedimentary rocks. And doing that, we realized, oh my God, it kind of connect to stuff we've done for hard rocks in the past.
So the challenges are twofold different. You know, brines, as long as MG to lithium was 6-1, conventional, and everybody has the conventional, and you can almost predict and copy it, you know, from a layout point of view. When that ratio changes, then you're looking at something different. How do you handle things like magnesium if the ratio is 22-1 versus 6 to 1. In hard rocks, you've seen a lot of projects going ahead with huge, and I mean huge, capital investments. You've seen a lot of projects at $1 billion go over budget by 400 million or more.
Mhm.
And it's very capital intensive once you get into hard rock type processing. And it involves going from 1% lithium to 6% lithium concentrate, then the leaching, which is usually done under high temperature, high pressure, the neutralization process, and then going to making a product that actually meets the industry needs. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but then all of a sudden you're at over $1 billion. And it's nobody's fault, that's the way it is. So what we did was we took a step back and we said, okay, can we relook at this? And honestly, we were looking at maybe reducing some impurities, and the lithium was in solution. We redid it, and the lithium was in solution. Okay, well, I think we're onto something. This is a new trend, and that's how it happened.
It's kind of funny because the first analysis that came out, chemical analysis, came out as a reflex, not from the solution, but from the tailings. And it came out as zero ppm.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, it's a lithium project. Can you give us the lithium results? I said, we'll give you the lithium results. It's zero. I said, no, we know like almost 1,000 ppm came in. We should have some in the tailings. I said, nope. Zero in the tailings. It's all in the solution. It's 100%. We actually pushed this thing enough that at one point, because of drilling muds, and humidity, we were able to get 30 ppms rejected from the process out of the whole thing. So about 0.03%.
Mhm.
But the one that were independently reviewed just got 100% precipitate into the solution, like 100% leach.
Wow. So scalability, you got to start in a lab and you bring it to the industry, and you need to be able to adapt to current.
I love that question. You didn't even know where you were going with that one, but that's a beautiful one. When it comes to leaching, it's very easy to scale up a mixer at room temperature, no pressure. The biggest mistake people do in the industry.
I'll probably stop you there, because we got a bunch of questions today, and I don't know exactly from where it's coming, but people says, so you don't want to use heat, you don't want to use gas, you're in Nevada, why do you want to do it as atmospheric pressure and like ambient temperature? And the question is not that we don't want to use heat. Like heat, well, in Nevada it's different. We could use higher heat, but if you were, let's say in Quebec, on the hard rock project, if you want to use heat in the winter, yeah, there's money involved. There's resource involved. You're going to need to bring gas or syngas. But if we can do it at normal temperature and without bringing any pressure, then we know what we can do, increasing the pressure, and actually, which is like anyone with like a basic course in physics and chemistry understand, we're going to accelerate the process. But we've been able to do it within an hour. Do we need to do it in 50 minutes? Like, do we need to add costs to do it in 50 minutes?
I'll go further. We took an hour as we started, but let's be honest. Who's to say it's not going to be done in 20 minutes? None of these other processes can match that. And the other part is, it's not a question of we're trying to avoid heat, high pressure, and high temperature. You're adding risk to all those things and scalability issues. Well, let's look at it another way. A mixer, no pressure, no temperature, polyethylene tank, let's agree that that's pretty simple to design. That you scale that up, that's pretty still easy. If I told you tomorrow morning, high pressure, high temperature, you don't scale that up one for one.
No.
Even each step that you're scaling it up is 4 to 1. So you're into a whole other realm of costs, risks, and rewards. This is so simple that it makes scalability not even an issue.
That's nice to hear.
And that's the key to it all,
Yeah.
right? So are we really trying to avoid that? Not really. It just worked.
Scalability is always an issue still, up to a certain point. Like you look at the sheer size of what, for example, Bonnie Claire is. if you go to the hard rock, it's different. If you go to Bonicare, if they want to put this into production, so okay, we're going to have 15, 20 years mine life. There's no market for anybody else ever. Like, this is so big that it's going to be massive. Which means we're going to have to go back to the guy at Niche, for example, that we used to do the separation, like the air separation, air classification. They don't have one unit that's big enough. They don't have 50 units that's big enough to do the sheer size of what Bonicare could be. So that means we're going to have to go into design and come up with some of the biggest air classifier that's been put out or rolled out in the market.
Wow.
So there is always an issue, but I would say the risk is limited, especially if they want to be just one producer, like any other. If they want to take over the market, yeah, well, then you have scalability issue.
What would you say to really maybe turn some heads here? Because it's clearly been missed. People aren't catching the fact of how significant this could potentially be.
You know what this
I'll
puts it
say
in
for
perspective is?
Go ahead.
It puts it in the same category as Argentina and Chile, as brines. That are that nice Mg to lithium ratio of 6:1 or less. This puts it in the same category.
Let's say for very low cost, and I want to really underline this and emphasize that, for very low cost, we're putting out at this point, before we do the next step, before we move to stage 2, we're doing a concentrate of lithium that can compete the hard rock concentrate being put out.
Amazing.
Out of a very low grade. Then after that, if actually, and this is a possibility, if we strike out on every other step of the process, we know it works in the lab. We don't know if it's going to work in industrial scale. Let's say it doesn't work. There's technology out there that are, like, let's say, legacy technology that Iconic can go to after this step of concentration.
So they can start with your process and finish it with another.
Upgrade
know what?
themselves
Overly
to an high-grade
simplistic.
project, and then just move to known technology.
Yeah. You know what's happened with lithium is that most people always talk about resins. They're not that complicated. I don't want to minimize them. Some are more sophisticated and more selective. So, some people will tell you that they can collect lithium in a brine that's a 22:1 ratio of Mg to lithium. Whereas most of them go from 6:1 ratio of lithium. And I give them full credit for their technology. In our case, you're not going to never have that. And finding
why? That's an important part.
Yeah.
Because we actually don't try to get the lithium at the beginning. We try to get everything but the lithium from step to step to step, which means we selectively extract 100% of the magnesium before we get to the lithium.
Interesting.
So all salts, metals, will leach under similar conditions. So when we talk about sulfuric acid at high temperature, high pressure, all the Mg, all the calcium, all the lithium will go into solution in those situations. And you still have to purify it all. And you have a bunch of other elements that are in there. In our case, we're really only leaching the salt metals. And what's really cool about that is we leave potassium behind, we leave all the other metals behind. Because we're actually using a passivating acid that's used even for when you make stainless steel welds and you see them not rusting, they actually passivate them with this acid to prevent the rust. So we're really only using what most people use as a cleaning acid to put the lithium into solution.
There's
So
a
it's
ratio.
quite a different approach.
The story is that there's a ratio between these two acids.
Interesting.
And there's a dynamic with whatever came in as the concentrate just before.
Now take a step back and look at it a different way. If you've collected the lithium and the same thing in all the other acids, what are you going to do with the acid? It costs money to neutralize everything. Well, what if your byproduct is a fertilizer? So you've collected the lithium, and as long as you can collect at cost your acid costs back or more, you're ahead of the game because you're the lowest cost producer. And that's what's being created right here.
I love that you keep referencing being ahead of the game, because that seems to be the theme of what you guys are doing. So, in having said that, where are your patents at right now, and how many have you actually applied for?
In this
in
case, it's
the-
one
yeah.
all-encompassing patent that covers everything.
The lithium up to stage 1.5, I would say, of this 3-stage we actually disclosed, there's one. There's probably 2, 3, or like 2 big ones, depending at the next step. And that's why we've been pretty much trying to balance what we can say and what's happening. And we've decided whatever happens on the bench and in the lab is not public. It's not to be disclosed to the public.
And that's fair.
That's going to go into the patent. When we'll get bulk sample results for that, we'll get press release out. But by then, we'll have probably the provisional patent file.
Beautiful. So everything sounds like it's moving ahead in the right time frame, and the deal with ICM is looking good. So far, so good. Cool. Well, thanks guys for taking the time to meet with us today. Really appreciate it, and look forward to having another interview with you soon.
Thank you for stopping in between 2 things on your way and finding us.
Yeah, that was a challenge. Montreal is a very confusing city, I'm not going to lie.
There you go. And next time, Frank's gonna have cigars for everybody.
Yeah, it won't just be him
Just
smoking on
don't
camera.
take me by surprise. That's